Today from the BBC, overseas NHS recruitment not sustainable, MP. This one's from Ben Godfrey, BBC Midlands. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and in a strange coincidence, it's day 2 of very, very stupid Labour politicians or appointees making statements that they really shouldn't be making. Yeah, it's Labour MPs saying the quiet part out loud. The irony here being that people like you and I have been pointing out for decades that all of our nurses were, working class English girls in the 90s and the noughties, well, early noughties, till Blair got his talons into things. And far from it being a godsend that tons of our NHS employees are now from abroad, it's actually just took yet another common profession away from the white working class in the United Kingdom. When I was a lad, all the young lasses wanted to be nurses, and these were caring young lasses who really enjoyed the idea of taking care of people, as opposed to a bunch of random foreign mercenaries who simply want a paycheck. But the reason this story's interesting is because the numbers are truly staggering, and if you ask them stories about numbers for crime statistics or prison populations, they never want to tell you who was born abroad. But this story gives you some nice, juicy data, which if they had any brains, they would never have released in the first place. So let's take advantage of another slip-up by these devious, slithering MPs and find out some interesting statistics, shall we? It is funny as well, isn't it? We've been complaining about these numbers for decades, and the Labour MP only crawls out from under the rock to say that it's not sustainable because they've realised that it's not benefiting the other countries either. Again, anyone with 2 brain cells to rub together would know that it's not benefiting these people because we're just stealing talent from abroad half the time with our stupid, ignorant, purposely harmful policies. But the one time one of these dense Labour MPs comes out and says something reasonable, like overseas NHS recruitment isn't sustainable, and the only reason she said it is because it's stitching up the places where they're coming from and not the place they're coming to. So we align somehow on this rare occasion, but only one of us cares about the massive harm that it's doing to the United Kingdom. And strangely enough, it's the American expat who cares about the United Kingdom and not a minister elected by a constituents to care about the United Kingdom. I never saw that coming, did you? Okay, so this gibbering idiot is Paulette Hamilton, who worked as a district nurse in Birmingham before becoming an MP. Although credit where it's due, being a nurse in Birmingham is like being a trauma surgeon in Baghdad at the height of the Iraq War. Not just because a few 100,000 Iraqi terrorists are now living in Birmingham, but because tens of thousands of third world waifs and strays have made Birmingham the home since the late 80s. People from Middlesbrough love Birmingham because it's the one place in England we get to point at and say, oh my God, what a shithole. Where were we? Oh yeah, so Pocket Nostrils Paulette says that it's not sustainable for the UK to continue looking abroad for NHS staff. And here's where the statistics get interesting. Almost 1 in 5 NHS workers in the Midlands have been recruited from abroad, according to workforce data from NHS England. Labour MP for Erdington, Paulette Hamilton, said, "We can't just take nurses from abroad in the same number anymore because a lot of countries can't spare them." Yeah, didn't bother a none when they were decimating working class communities in England. But now it might be, costing them some expertise in Mogadishu or Mozambique. All of a sudden, it's the Labour MP's problem. Very strange that, isn't it? It's a bit like David Lammy, who's consistently telling us that we all can't forget about Sudan or we have to pay reparations to people in Barbados, but he doesn't seem to give a single solitary shite about the place he's supposed to represent. A Department of Health and Social Care spokesperson. It's never a spokesman anymore, is it? They said it was committed to helping homegrown talent by training thousands of healthcare professionals. I'm impressed. They're only saying this 27 years after everybody else has. That's good. That's 3 or 4 years quicker than usual. Maybe at this rate, by 22-27, At least one of the imbeciles in the House of Commons will have actually caught up with everybody else. The rate has almost doubled nationally since 2009, the BBC found, with approximately 42% of doctors being not British, as are 25% of nurses and healthcare visitors, 3% of managers and 2% of senior managers. Well, twist my nipples and call me Frank. There's a little nugget they sneaked in there as well, 25% of healthcare visitors. And as I keep pointing out, the system has been rigged by self-trimming middle-class arseholes. Only 2% of senior managers are born abroad, so working class girls from Sunderland who want to be nurses are in a bit of bother because 42% of the people competing for their jobs are born abroad. But if you're a self-trimming middle-class arsehole, no need to worry about it, because 98% of them are homegrown. Just like, what are the jobs are 98% homegrown? Actors, Guardian journalists, BBC newsreaders, weathermen. They're all doing all right, aren't they? I wonder who those type of people vote for. The growth of recruitment programmes over the past decade has come amid a series of vacancies, particularly in nursing, which continues to be on the list of occupations facing ongoing shortages. Jericho Mental, he's got a suitable name, hasn't he? Mental. Yeah, because you'd have to be to want to move to the UK in this day and age. Also, we tend to only employ people that are mental. So that's very apt, that, Jericho. He was recruited as a nurse from the Philippines. It's a big pedestal to be able to say you worked abroad, but to be able to work in the NHS in the UK was an even higher pedestal. It was prestigious. Yeah, it's a steep learning curve because you'll get more gunshot wounds in a hospital in Birmingham than you'll see anywhere in the Philippines. I'd rather get treated in a hospital in Kabul than Birmingham. It was simpler 9 years ago when we came. Nowadays, when you move to the UK, you're faced with a lot more challenges. For example, the economic crisis, changes in house prices, it's harder to adapt. Yeah, and both of those problems are a result of mass movement of peoples. If we hadn't moved 5 million foreigners in, it wouldn't be quite so expensive to buy a house, now would it? Or do you think they live in shoe boxes, like very large bipedal gerbils? Between 2021 and 2023, the Royal Wolverhampton NHS Trust led the biggest overseas recruitment programme seen in the Midlands in recent years, recruiting about 1,500 nurses to work in the Black Country and West Birmingham. Yeah, the Black Country. I believe that used to be alluding to the skyline during the Industrial Revolution, but now it refers to the fact that almost every person you bump into if you walk around Birmingham looks like Whoopi Goldberg or Lenny Henry. That has now ended as posts have been filled, but it saw nurses arrive from countries including the Philippines, South Africa, Brazil, Ghana, Nigeria, Nepal and India. Strangely enough, no mention of places like Denmark, Norway, Canada, Australia or the United States, places where people might come and fit in quite easily and not struggle with any peculiar foreign practices like acid in the face, FGM or widow burning. There was a national shortage of nurses, so our international recruitment was pivotal in helping us fill vacancies. It's also provided us with an opportunity to diversify the workplace. An opportunity, really? Yeah, have you ever been to Birmingham? No tourist. I've met Americans who've been. No tourist has ever walked through Birmingham in the last 40 years and at the end of the day gone, you know what Birmingham really needs? Couple of foreigners. Yeah, I'm sick and tired of seeing white people in Birmingham. I remember me dad telling me that the whole reason they had to take the Golly mascot off the Robertson's marmalade jars was because the locals in Birmingham were pulling them off and using them as bus passes. Right, that was a dad joke in 1988. It's not a place that needed any more diversity. If anything, it desperately needs an influx of pale blondes and gingers. It's about making sure that everything is planned, so it's not just about the recruitment of the individual. It's about respecting the transition and the challenges of packing up your whole life and moving to a different country. This can also mean ongoing support for staff. The manhole-nostrilled politician also said that the government had been looking at the situation with Health Secretary and well-known brain-dead communist rabble-rouser Wes Streeting, said he wanted to train 5,000 more health visitors and 8,500 mental health nurses. He wants to get general nurses into training. But you know, for that to become a reality, we have to look at the way the training is offered. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. We have to, we might do, we could do, we should do. And that's the end of the story. Brilliant. Yeah, shall I tell you something I want? I want Angelina Jolie to hum the national anthem with my testicles in her mouth. But funny old thing, that's not going to happen anytime soon either. And I'm only sharing this story with you because Wes Streeting basically did the exact same thing. He said, we want to do stuff, and we want to do stuff, and we want to do stuff. See you later. And then he left without elucidating further, without giving you anything black and white, without giving you a plan, without even indicating he has the slightest clue how to achieve anything, because he's about as bright as the gently flickering embers of a recently burned down children's hospital in the ruins of Birmingham. Okay, we've all got things we'd want to happen, but normal people expect a little bit more detail than that. You can't just reel off a list of wants and then rub your hands like you're doing your job and wander off for the day. Streeting is about as much use as a nun's tits. All of this has been obvious for 25 years, nay, 35 years. We stopped training nurses. All those hard-working, diligent little English schoolgirls got told, shut up, know your place, get on the dole, get on the rock and roll, and then you'll be nice little obedient statists for the rest of your life. You go on the dole and we'll just import a few million foreigners. The females can all be nurses, and the men, well, we know what the men'll do to you above greasy kebab shops up and down the country. We know what that is, but if I was to say that out loud, I'd probably get in trouble. Suffice it to say, you'll probably have a bit of a limp afterwards. So that's the story, and you can follow the links, and there's more and more and more of it, and it's just repeating stuff that we've all known is factually accurate for 30 years, but the government didn't want to talk about it, and now because we are led by genuine imbeciles, the stuff is slowly coming out, but only by accident. Only by accident. Because if a right-wing politician asked the Labour government how many people worked in the NHS and what percentage of them were born abroad and what percentage of people using it were born abroad, they'd never tell them. They would never tell them. Just like if you ask them exactly how many surprise sex enthusiasts were born abroad in British prisons, they're not interested in telling you. Fortunately, idiots tell us things by accident. Alright, so there's some good facts for you. They're not training nurses, they did it on purpose, they wanted to stitch up working class communities, they wanted to import their replacements or their diddlers, and 25% of people using the NHS are health tourists who were born abroad. 25%. You know what that means? Very simple. The current NHS budget is around £200 billion a year, so that means £50 billion a year is being spent on people who never put a single penny into the system. £50 billion a year. And that's why when I was a lad, if you were ill, you used to call the doctor and there'd be one stood in your living room 4 hours later. Yep, that's what used to happen in 1987. I remember it well. And now what happens? You ring a doctor and they go, I'll see you in 6 months, son. Sorry. There's a few hundred health tourists to get to before you're allowed to drag your ass in here, knobhead. So, brilliant. Thanks for those statistics, love. 50 billion a year, down the Swanee. It makes the war in Ukraine look cheap, doesn't it? So, every cloud has a silver lining. Thanks for that, love, and thanks for watching. I hope you're all having a good day. Happy Friday. I'll see you for a live stream tomorrow, alright? 7 p.m. Oh yeah, I think I'm doing a podcast with Nick Buckley. So I've got quite a lot on this weekend. And I'm doing some travelling. Anyway, I'll see you on Saturday, 7 p.m. Be there or be square. Please like and share it if you can be bothered. Leave me a comment. I do read them all. And I'll see you all soon. Toodle pip. Cheers.